Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DraftKings Daily Trot. I'm Big Italy 42, joined here by Scott Mailwig at Sports 25 to Life, and we're talking about tonight's slate on DraftKings, starting at 7:10 p.m. Obviously, some weird start times once again today. You got the empty stadium in Baltimore here in a couple hours. You've got some 6 o'clock games, but main slate, the big money, starting at 7:10. So that's what we're going to bring you tonight, and I'm just going to go ahead and make it real simple right off the bat. Felix Hernandez is the pitcher that you want in your cash game lineups, probably in most of your GPPs too. Texas, the second worst team in the league against right-handed pitching. Absolutely awful. Coincidentally, another good pitcher going against the actual worst team in the league against righties, and that's the Phillies. So Carlos Martinez there. You got $10,600 for Felix Hernandez. Carlos Martinez is just $7,700. I mean, that's a pretty easy way to go in your cash games there. Two big favorites against the worst offenses in the game.
Yeah, definitely. Those are going to be the two cash game guys on DraftKings tonight. I like Zach Greinke a little bit against San Francisco, but for 400 less than Felix, it's pretty hard to justify. He hasn't been going nearly as deep into games. Texas, like you mentioned, has been really bad against righties, especially with Beltre struggling. It's just a really good situation for Hernandez. Carlos Martinez, you mentioned, has that great matchup with Philly. Philly hasn't been hitting anyone. We saw Waka have a little trouble last night, but he struggled with walks and stuff a little bit more than actually getting hit too much. But I think Martinez will be in good shape tonight. Jordan Zimmerman's a guy I'm going to look at a little bit for GPPs. He still hasn't really figured it out yet this year, but for 8,600, I'll probably play around with him a little bit. I can't imagine Atlanta going back-to-back with two monster offensive games, really. So, yeah, right. So I'm thinking he's a decent GPP play. He's a pretty solid favorite in this one. And like I said, 8,600 for a price tag is not bad at all.
Yeah, I don't mind that either. And I got a crazy off-the-wall guy for you here for GPPs. I talked about him on the FanDuel podcast, and at $5,500, the ultimate contrarian play is Jordan Lyles tonight against Arizona. Everyone's going to be on the Arizona bats, being in Chase Field. Yes, it's a hitter's park, but Jordan Lyles, 12 and 2/3 innings in Coors Field so far this season. He's given up 2 extra base hits. Both were doubles. The guy's keeping the ball on the ground 52.8% of the time. Has not given up a home run yet this year. 207 WOBA allowed to righties. A lot of righties in this Diamondback lineup here, so certainly not a cash game play at all ever in your life. Don't you dare do that. But at $5,500, you can pair him with Felix Hernandez, stack your favorite teams, and I mean, he doesn't kill you if he doesn't give you a great outing. I mean, he's priced less than Mike Trout.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a great price there. And like you said, no one's going to have him. Not a favorite. I think it's a pretty good GPP play on this slate, especially if you're playing Felix and you want to get some big bats in your lineup with him. I think that's a pretty good duo there for tournaments.
Yeah, and I think that he's going to get plenty of run support. Josh Kallminter on the other side, really bad against lefties. I don't know if you've heard how good these lefty bats are for the Colorado Rockies, but they're pretty damn good. So I'm going to be getting a ton of exposure to them. I'm sure we'll get to that here in a minute. But outside of that, there's really not a whole lot of pitchers I like. I'm not trying to go too far off the wall, go crazy. Garrett Cole I like as a tournament play. He's been pitching really well. 26.7% strikeout rate so far this year, 62.1% ground ball rate. So wind blowing in at Wrigley again. If he keeps the ball on the ground, which he's very good at doing, then I think he's going to be a nice GPP play. And at $8,800, he should be pretty low owned as well.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good call.
All right, moving on here to catcher, where Yasmani Grandal, assuming that he's in the lineup, $3,800. I'm a big fan of the Dodger bats tonight against Ryan Vogelsong, who's been not very good in his ripe old age of, I think it's 37. But he's just such a bad pitcher right now, and a lot of these Dodger bats got the day off yesterday to rest up for this beating that's coming tonight. So I'm a fan of him. Stephen Vogt is nice and cheap at $3,700 against an average, maybe slightly above average righty, and Matt Shoemaker. So who else are you looking at here behind the plate?
I think you nailed the two main guys. Pierzynski's a guy that's been red hot. Probably a guy I'm going to look at a little bit. I think he's only $2,900 today. Zimmerman hasn't been blowing anyone away by any means. If you're not playing him in a GPP there, I think Pierzynski's a solid play. If Hundley's starting, I think he's a fine play again for Colorado. I'd like to see him batting a little bit higher in the order, but like you mentioned when we were talking about pitchers in a hitter's ballpark, I think he's a pretty decent play. Outside of that, other than getting really excited about putting a guy named Tuffy Go Switch in my lineup, I don't think there's a lot of other catchers I'm looking at.
Yeah, that always just reminds me of that old commercial. That's a toughie.
I love that name. Like, I really want a friend with that name.
Right? Hey, well, next kid you have, or I don't know, I don't think you have any kids, but first kid maybe Tuffy.
Yeah,
I mean,
Tuffy. There
I'm
you
gonna
go.
throw the name in the ring. I mean, maybe it's only half your decision.
I think it's got to be something like it's a long name, and that's what you shorten it to, or something. But I don't know what you'd shorten to that.
I have no idea. I don't know if there is a long for that. Maybe we can find Tuffy on Twitter and ask him if it's short for something. Maybe it's probably something weird where his name's like Steve, and he got the nickname Tuffy when he was 5 because he hit his head and didn't get a concussion. I don't know. There's got to be some weird kind of story behind that. But either way, enough Tuffy talk here. Moving on to first base, Adrian Gonzalez is my favorite play tonight at $4,900. Ryan Vogelsong's had struggles throughout his career against lefties. Obviously, short sample size this year, but 548 will have allowed to lefties, 3 homers already, walking over 12% of batters. I mean, if I'm Ryan Vogelsong, I mean, I have the deer in the headlights look tonight against this Dodger offense because it could get bad pretty quickly.
Yeah, Adrian Gonzalez, great play, 4,900. Feel pretty good about paying that. Matt Adams is another guy I'm looking at, facing a righty. He's been hitting righties pretty well. 4,300, both really solid plays. Going to be a tough choice between those two for me for cash games. If you're not playing wilds in a GPP, I think Goldschmidt has a ton of upside again. Had a really nice night last night. Only concern with him is price, really. I'd rather have Adrian and Adams for cash games for the price discount, but I think he's got as much or more upside than both of them again tonight. There was one cheaper guy that I was looking at that just...
I was trying to find someone cheap there myself, and I thought it was pretty slim pickings. Was it Ike Davis?
Yeah, that's who I was looking for. 3,600. That's what he is.
Yeah.
He's facing another righty again tonight. I think he's a solid play. Nothing really special there, but he's been getting on base a decent amount. Has a little bit of upside power wise. He's a guy I'm going to look at.
Yeah,
probably if I'm trying to save money.
Yeah, and just to further that point, I mean, Matt Shoemaker really struggling with the fly ball this year.
Yep.
47.9% so far. Actually, the highest fly ball rate among pitchers on tonight's slate for this season. So definitely Stephen Vogt, all those guys kind of in hand there. And he struggled a lot. Well, he struggled against lefties and righties this year, but especially lefties. So I like that call a lot if you're trying to save some money. Moving over to second base, this guy, I was a little bit disappointed this morning, and I'll see if you saw this as well. D. Gordon no longer with shortstop eligibility on DraftKings.
Oh, I didn't see that. Oh, man, that's rough.
Rest in peace, D. Gordon at shortstop. I'm speechless. I'm upset about it. I'm very upset, but I still like him at second base. He's one of my favorite cash game plays. He's got a nice high floor. He's hitting the ball very well. Going against Bartolo Colon, who he's the slowest person on earth at just about everything that he does. I haven't seen him do many things other than play baseball, but I mean, D. Gordon's going to have all the time in the world to steal bases if he gets on today.
Yep.
So, I mean, he makes for a great play with a nice floor and some upside as well. Elsewhere, I'm not really going to be paying up if I'm not paying for D. Gordon. Is there anybody else you like at the top here?
Nothing really. I mean, Cano's facing a lefty today. Don't love that. There's really not a lot at the top of second base like usual. I mean, I think I'm going to have a ton of D. Gordon at only 4,500. I think that's a really strong play. Daniel Murphy is the other higher up guy I'll probably be playing against Latos, but he's only 4,000, so he's almost a value play anyway. The two really cheap value plays I'll be looking at are the two Washington guys. Espinoza and Ugla both had nice games last night. 2,600 for Espinoza and that awesome mustache. 2,800 for Ugla. Both against the lefty tonight. They both have more power against lefties. I think that's a pretty decent GPP play at worst. 2,600 and 2,800 for cash games isn't going to kill you either.
Yeah, I really like that call definitely right there. Because you're going to need a little bit of cheap guys. I mean, you got Carlos Martinez if he's your SP2, but I mean, you do have over 10K for Felix Hernandez, which I think is a ridiculously low price, to be honest with you, at 10.6. I mean, the way he's been pitching, I'd expect him to be up more 11.5, maybe even closer to 12. But
yeah, I mean, he's been pitching better than Kershaw lately, and he's priced well below what Kershaw was last night.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think he's been the best pitcher in the game so far this season. So, I mean, I'll take the discount. I'm not complaining, DraftKings. Don't you dare toughen up on his pricing anymore. Leave him at 10.6 rest of the year, and I'll be thrilled. Moving on here to third base. Matt Carpenter, if you can afford him, always a great cash game play against an average, if you even want to call him that, Aaron Harang, who his surface numbers look like he's having a good season, but I'm not buying it. The guy's he's just not that good. He's very average, still struggling with fly balls at 47.1%. He's only given up 1 home run so far in the season. That's not going to last. He's going to start getting hit. We've seen him before, so I like him if you can afford him. And elsewhere, not a lot to like as far as expensive guys go. I mean, you got Beltre going against Kid Felix Hernandez. No thanks. Kyle Seager against a lefty at $5K. Pretty expensive there. Chris Bryant, less than a below average matchup against Garrett Cole. I don't really like that either. So, I mean, outside that, I'll be going down a little bit where Marcus Semien, if he's batting first or second again at 3,700, I'll probably rather play him at short. But who else are you looking at here in this range?
Martin Prado's a guy I've been playing quite a bit in cash games lately. Hitting right between D. Gordon and Giancarlo Stanton is a nice spot.
Okay.
Hitting second in the order all the time. Second base and third base eligibility. I think he's reached base 4 or 5 games in a row now. He's not a super high upside guy, but for 3,700 in cash games, I feel pretty good about him at both second and third. Probably more likely at third since I'm going to try and play D. Gordon at second, but Nolan Arenado hitting fifth right now at Arizona, decent play. Like you said, Matt Carpenter is the elite cash game play here, I think. And if you're looking for like cheaper GPP plays, I mean, there's not really even a lot out there. Yunel Escobar has been hitting second for Washington. He's a decent play. 3,200 is a little more than I'd like to play for him, and I think he missed yesterday's game. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Alberto Callaspo is only 2,500 if he's got a nice lineup spot as well. But I mean, he's not a great hitter. He's about an average hitter. But I guess
he had a nice night last night.
Yeah, I mean, 2 of his last 3 games, he's put up 14 fantasy points. So I mean, he puts the ball in play. If Zimmerman's bad, we know he's prone to implosion when he's doesn't have his best stuff. So at 2,500, if he fits, I don't mind going that route at third base.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to shortstop. Already mentioned Marcus Semien, and unfortunately cannot mention D. Gordon here. If you want to pay up for Troy Tulowitzki, it's not a bad spot. Cole Minter has been better against righties than lefties, but he's still Troy Tulowitzki, so obviously by far the best play. Brad Miller is the second most expensive guy on the board at shortstop today, and if you want to play him, you have fun with that. I will not be touching Brad Miller, probably batting 8th or 9th tonight against the lefty. Yeah, no thanks. Johnny Peralta is a guy at $4,000. He's in a fine spot against Aaron Harang. I don't mind him. Kind of expensive. Jimmy Rollins' price starting to get up there. I don't know why. Maybe it's a good matchup. He certainly doesn't deserve to have a higher price tag because he's been awful, but still kind of tempting with those Dodgers bats against Vogelsong. So, I mean, surface stats tell you that he's been awful, but we know he still has the potential to have big games, and he'll probably go pretty under-owned tonight due to the fact that he's been struggling at the plate.
Yeah, he's a great GPP play tonight. With his price going up, been struggling. He's going to be really low owned. I think he's a pretty decent GPP play. Ian Desmond is another guy like that. Has some decent power against lefties facing Wood. I think he's been hitting 5th or 6th in the order against lefties, so that's a decent spot for a shortstop. Not going to be a lot of shortstops hitting very high in the order today, it looks like. So, I mean, that's kind of where I'm looking. I mean, I'm going to probably have a decent amount of Tulowitzki, a decent amount of Rollins. You mentioned Peralta's a solid cash game play. Those are the top 3 guys for me.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Shortstop, not a particularly deep position. If you see some guy that opens up, maybe he's batting a guy in a nice lineup spot later on when we see lineups come out, maybe a guy's batting second, which we see every once in a while. But just looking at these names down low, the only guy that I really see that could end up being in a decent lineup spot would be Freddie Galvis. He's batted second a couple times this year, but been pretty buried down the 8-hole recently. So Alex Guerrero in tournaments, though, if he's in the lineup, $3,400. I don't mind him at all.
Yeah, not a bad price.
All right, moving on to the outfield here where you've got your obvious top options, guys like Mike Trout, but if I'm paying up, it's going to be Nelson Cruz against the lefty 100% of the time. He's on fire right now. He matches lefties. All he did was hit a double and a triple in his first 2 at-bats against the lefty last night. Wandy Rodriguez, I mean, all the factors going in his favor tonight.
That triple was a little bit of a gift, though, by the outfielder on that one, though.
Hey, but
he's hitting them all great. Yeah, definitely. Another expensive guy I like quite a bit tonight is Corey Dickerson against Cole Minter. Great lefty-righty matchup there. I don't love paying that super high price away from Coors, but I feel like that's a pretty strong play. You mentioned Cruz already. Matt Holliday's a guy I'm going to be looking at in GPPs a decent amount today. Had a nice 3-for-5 game with a double last night. He's looking pretty good. Facing Harang, like you mentioned, I don't think he's going to keep pitching as well as he has been pitching. Probably the top cheap guy I'm looking at is Ruggiano today against the lefty Rodriguez. He's been hitting second in the order against lefties. I think that's a pretty strong play as far as value plays go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all the Colorado lefties in play as well. Blackman, Gonzalez, both mid to high 4K guys. I like both of them. Cole Calhoun against Jesse Hahn, $4,700. I don't mind either. As far as cheap guys go, if you want to go a guy with a bad lineup spot and good position, been hitting the ball, Jock Peterson at $4,000. I don't mind him, but or Curtis Granderson either at $3,900. I don't mind him.
Yeah, one guy for Arizona is Inciarte has been hitting leadoff against righties a decent amount, 3,500 in Arizona. That's a pretty strong play as far as value plays go too.
Yeah, and David Peralta at $3,900. I like him as well.
Yeah, we mentioned when we were talking about Ike Davis, Shoemaker's been struggling with lefties a little bit. Hasn't looked great so far this season. Sam Fold's only 3,200. He's a decent cash game play guy that I've been playing to save some cap in the outfield if I'm looking for that. That's a pretty good matchup for him.
Absolutely. And that's going to wrap things up for us here. Check us out on Twitter at DF Cafe. Tons of great content for tonight's action at dailyfantasycafe.com. And we'll see you guys next time.